our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
If it makes you feel uncomfortable, if your political opponents were to have that kind of power, were to wield that kind of power, then it should make you feel uncomfortable anyone wanting to have that kind of influence or that kind of power. Truth actually emerges as a process over time, the importance of protecting democracy. You're kind of wanting to subvert one of the key aspects of democracy, which is free speech and free expression, in order to protect it. So here is John Kerry recently at the World Economic Forum talking about social media.
Dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact have kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. There's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
So I think this is a very interesting video. I think this is a question that we're going to hear more of in the coming years. It's not necessarily going to go away. How do we deal with the issue of the internet, which in many ways is a grand experiment we're living through in real time? We don't fully understand the internet and all of the amazing opportunities it presents, but clearly the challenges as well. And trying to navigate those challenges is clearly a worthy and important question and issue. The question is going to be, is what John Kerry is proposing the right kind of solution? What I think he's putting forward here essentially is the idea that there needs to be more state regulation and control over information and over speech. This is a problem, clearly, because first of all, you end up having a de facto Bureau of Truth, a group of people who pronounce themselves the arbiters of truth and will control and see and censor and control what you see, what you can hear. This clearly is antithetical to traditional liberal Western democracies, where free speech is a cornerstone. Now, it's not that the internet doesn't pose certain problems, and there are bad actors, but I don't think this approach that Kerry is putting forward is the right one. What I think Kerry is saying here is there needs to be more control by states, by governments, to control what people see and what they hear, and for them to control what is considered true. First of all, you can just run a simple thought experiment. Would you be happy if your political opponents, the political side that you disagree with, if they wielded this kind of power? If the people you disagree with politically were able to say, we can now control what we consider as truth, quote unquote, he mentions truth there, they control what you can see, what you can hear, and they decide what is deemed worthy information. Would you be happy if your political opponents wielded that kind of power? That's a simple thought experiment that you can run. This essentially is the golden rule, the golden principle that you treat others how you wish to be treated. A democracy has to function on that basis. You can't have one set of rules for one side, for one team, and one set of rules for another. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, if your political opponents were to have that kind of power, were to wield that kind of power, then it should make you feel uncomfortable anyone wanting to have that kind of influence or that kind of power. The question becomes, who decides what truth is? I would argue anyone who offers themselves as that person is unworthy of the task by definition. Truth often comes about in stages. What may appear to be untrue at one point then becomes possibly true, then becomes true beyond doubt. That is a process. It takes time. I think one of the issues of our time is that we have this breakneck speed of news and information. And so people instinctively, naturally want to have very quick, fast facts and answers. But what's true today might not be true tomorrow. You have to be able to have free speech and free expression to work these things out. Truth actually emerges as a process over time. At one point, the world was flat. For those people, that was true. It was practically true for them, even though it was factually false. Information, truth emerges over time. We've seen many examples in recent years where information that seemed to be heresy or untrue at one point later becomes true. So anyone who pronounces too solidly, too early what truth is by definition stifling the process of which information emerges. I think it was Sam Harris that said, free speech and free expression is humanity's problem-solving mechanism. It's our ability to communicate over time freely that allows information to emerge. If you stifle that process, if you inhibit it by inhibiting what you deem to be true or what you deem to be correct information, you are curtailing, you are preventing the very process in which we solve problems. That's clearly a big issue. And that is one of the great benefits of a liberal Western democracy, is that we allow many voices to contribute to a single issue, and then eventually you have to have faith that the truth will rise to the top. Another question is, what about dissent? Typically, it's been liberal and left-wing movements that have had the greatest sense and importance of dissent, the understanding that perspectives will vary. Whenever a state comes along and says, we will control your speech, your ideas, what is permissible, it's the dissenting voices that the left have had a reverence for, that have wanted to champion. So we have to also have a certain amount of dissent. This kind of talk, this kind of rhetoric, basically, yes, can be wielded and aimed at genuine bad actors, but it can also be put forward towards basically anyone you disagree with, any voice that's critical. Yes, there can be genuinely bad actors who are, in his words, sick with an agenda. But what about, where's the line between those people or people you just disagree with? Maybe people you don't fully understand, you've not totally engaged with. That tool, that very blunt tool, can be used to wield against your political enemies. Typically, it's the left that have had the greatest sense of the importance of protecting the right to dissent, to have different viewpoints, conflicting ideas. However, what about genuinely bad actors? Kerry here is talking about the person who is sick with an agenda, who's purposely putting out misinformation. I'm unsure what to do about those people. However, I think the solution of the internet, the problem of the internet, with all the great benefits it brings, but there are problems with the internet. One of the solutions is for greater self-awareness. I think greater online hygiene, better understanding of our individual responsibility that we have to ourselves and to the wider community of how we engage with things online. I don't think the right answer is to be putting that kind of responsibility in the hands of a state or a, as I say, de facto Bureau of Truth, a self-appointed committee of truth. It's up to us as a society, as individuals, to have better awareness. How can we actually do that? Well, first of all, it's understanding that A, we all have a bias. We all have biases, of course. Seeking out information that challenges your own bias is a healthy thing to do. It doesn't mean you have to adopt those ideas or agree with them, but I think that's healthy. It can help you understand the world a little bit better. It can make you possibly a little bit more empathetic. So we have to be aware of our own biases. None of us are truly objective. And then be willing to seek out other information. I think possibly think as simple as putting time limits on phones so we don't get into a habit of grazing and being pulled in different directions by the algorithm. Being purposeful with the sources you choose. Jared Lanier, who wrote 10 arguments for deleting your social media accounts right now, said that one idea would be, for example, if you go on YouTube, don't click on anything that the algorithm sends you. Only click on things that you've purposely decided beforehand that you want to go and look at. Only search things that you want to see. That way there's less chance that the algorithm can capture you. I'm also very aware that I'm saying this on the internet, and you've probably seen this on your algorithm. But I think having greater awareness of our online hygiene can help potentially take out some of the challenges of this new online world. A free democracy hinges on the ability for free expression. You have to have dissenting voices. Truth is murky. It doesn't come along all at once. It kind of emerges in certain stages. And the irony here, of course, is John Kerry talks about the importance of protecting democracy. You're kind of wanting to subvert one of the key aspects of democracy, which is free speech and free expression, in order to protect it. So there's a strange paradox there. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Do we need increased censorship and control around the internet? Do we need to have greater self-awareness? What is the answer? Am I mischaracterizing Kerry here? Is he right? Is he wrong? I'd love to hear from you.